Two U.S. Navy ships passed through the Taiwan Strait, triggering a burst of Chinese military activity.
Wenn uns die USA keine andere Wahl lassen, dann wird die Europäische Union geschlossen darauf reagieren.
The U.S.'s trade partners react to stiff tariffs on steel and aluminum imports.
本院原决议予以维持。
With Taiwan's legislature facing a storm of recall campaigns, lawmakers lock in stricter regulations on ousting elected officials. Plus,
join me live among the lights as Taiwan celebrates the Lantern Festival.
good evening and welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Eric Gao. Thanks for joining us. Taiwan's military says it is on high alert after a surge of Chinese military activity triggered by U.S. warships passing through the Taiwan Strait. Our defense reporter Jaime Ocon has the latest.
Two U.S. Navy ships, a destroyer and a research vessel, have passed through the Taiwan Strait from Monday through Wednesday, in what is the first Taiwan Strait transit under the new U.S. administration. What's interesting about this transit is that it was first reported by China, with Beijing angrily reacting to the U.S. mission, saying that the U.S. is sending the wrong signals, and adding that these kinds of transits increase security risks. The U.S. says the transit was routine and in line with international law, but did not post this on its website, marking a bit of a deviation from their normal protocol where they do make some of these transit public. Here in Taiwan, the Defense Ministry reported 30 Chinese military aircraft, as well as 7 naval ships operating around the country. 23 of those aircraft flew a bit closer and breached Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ. The military uses the ADIZ as a defensive buffer, even though it's not part of Taiwan's airspace. Those numbers are a bit of an indication on how China is reacting to the transit, as those numbers are much higher than the usual 10 or so aircraft that Taiwan usually sees in the region. Earlier this morning, I spoke to Taiwan's Defense Ministry about the surge in Chinese military aircraft, and this is what they had to say.
我们跟友盟国家的一个协同的部分，我想，台海地区的一个区域的和平跟稳定，这个部分不只是涉及到台湾的问题，它是区域内所有的自由民主国家共同关切的一个议题。
Taiwan's military says it scrambled its own fighter jets and deployed missile defense systems for extra measures, but says that the situation is normal. It's important to remember, though, that these kinds of transits in the Taiwan Strait by the U.S. do happen every 2 to 3 months, with the last transit happening back in November. But again, as this is the first transit under Trump 2.0, all eyes are now on China to see they step up military activity and test this new administration on how they react to tensions in the Taiwan Strait. Ryan Wu and Jaime Ocon in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Many U.S. trade partners are condemning President Donald Trump's newly signed tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, but Taiwan has responded differently, with some here saying that Trump's move could be a good thing for the country's steel industry. Joyce Zhang reports.
World leaders are stepping up to the plate in what could turn into a multi-front trade war with the U.S., condemning U.S. President Donald Trump's 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports that will take effect next month.
Wenn uns die USA keine andere Wahl lassen, dann wird die Europäische Union geschlossen darauf reagieren.
The U.S.'s largest foreign supplier of both metals, Canada, faces a stacked levy with other taxes on the country's goods, potentially amounting to a total 50% tariff. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says his country's imports create, quote, thousands, if not millions of jobs in the U.S., and that Canada will not stand idly by.
Be doing more together, not fighting with each other, but Canadians will stand up strongly and firmly if we need to.
Taiwan has also been caught in the crosshairs of Trump's metals levy, ranking in the top 10 of the U.S.'s steel importers. But Taiwan has reacted differently to the tariff. The U.S. has imposed a 25% levy on Taiwan-made steel since 2018. According to Taiwan's Trade Association for Steel and Iron, Trump's latest levy on all steel imports actually puts Taiwan on equal footing with other countries, describing it as a positive thing. The Economy Ministry has also said that due to recent competition with low-priced Chinese-made steel, Taiwan has turned to high-value specialized products, and so Trump's tariff does not change its competition with other countries. In Taiwan, more focus has been on Trump's pledge to impose higher tariffs on its semiconductors, the most advanced in the world. At a Paris AI summit, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance reiterated Trump's vision to bring high-end chips manufacturing to American soil.
And to safeguard America's advantage, the Trump administration will ensure that the most powerful AI systems are built in the U.S. with American-designed and manufactured chips.
Economists in both the U.S. and Taiwan have warned that taxing Taiwan-made chips, particularly TSMC's unmatched advanced nodes, would backfire on the U.S.
From Taiwan's point of view is that even if they levy chips on Taiwan, of course it's going to hurt, but it's not hurt that much. It's that you think about the TSMC, they're making the best chips. And so their bargaining power is unaffected by this. You know, Trump is playing the game with countries to say, I can do this, I can do that, be careful. So that intimidation, I think it does work. So countries like Taiwan, we would certainly talk and then try to, hope that the U.S. won't do that much.
Despite making the lion's share of the world's most advanced chips, Taiwan will still look to stay on Trump's good side, as the country relies on U.S.-made weapons to defend against China's threat to annex it, all high-stake elements in Taiwan's critical relationship with the U.S. Howard Zhang and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan chip-making giant TSMC is holding its first board meeting in the U.S. The meeting itself is considered routine, with analysts watching to see if the company will finalize more investments in the country. Taiwan's Deputy Economy Minister Cynthia Zhang is also in the U.S. to speak with officials there after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to impose tariffs on TSMC and other Taiwanese chip fabs. And while Trump shores up his America First manufacturing policy, some of Taiwan's smaller exporters might benefit the U.S. more if they stay here in Taiwan. Leslie Thao explains why in this report from the U.S.
U.S. President Donald Trump has a distaste for trade deficits. He doesn't like it when his country buys more than it sells with other countries. And he's going after some of the U.S.'s closest partners to close the gaps.
And I'll be putting the tariff of 25% on Canada and separately 25% on Mexico. And we will really have to do that because we have very big deficits with those countries.
Taiwan is a top U.S. trade partner. Statistics from Taiwan's finance ministry show that trade with the U.S. has more than doubled over the past decade. But the trade imbalance between Taiwan and the U.S. has also grown, nearly 12-fold between 2014 and 2024. The U.S. has long run a trade deficit with Taiwan. Trump's tariffs are taxes levied on American businesses importing goods from targeted countries, raising costs and deterring purchases of those products. Taiwan produces over 90% of the world's most advanced computer chips, and roughly half of Taiwan's exports to the U.S. are related products. Now, it seems Trump is training his tariff policy on Taiwan.
We're going to be placing tariffs on foreign production of computer chips, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals to return production of these essential goods to the United States of America.
But computer chips aren't Taiwan's only forte. When people think about Taiwanese manufacturing, they probably think about high-tech components like semiconductors. But the truth is, there are a lot of everyday goods, like this bicycle chain, that are manufactured in Taiwan and exported all over the world. It's not just bicycle chains Taiwan specializes in. It manufactures components essential to worldwide industries.
My understanding is there are only 2 countries, Taiwan being one of them, that can produce screws that are high quality enough, high grade enough, made out of the right materials that they can be used in the automobile industry. And it's that way throughout the manufacturing industry. Footwear, bicycle chains, motors that go into drill bits at dentist offices. There are Taiwanese companies that specialize in each of these things.
Trump says his tariffs aim to do one thing: bring manufacturing to America.
My message to every business in the world is very simple. Come make your product in America, and we will give you among the lowest taxes of any nation on earth. But if you don't make your product in America, which is your prerogative, then very simply you will have to pay a tariff.
Bigger companies may have an easier time setting up shop in the U.S. Taiwan's semiconductor juggernaut TSMC is building a plant in Arizona. But small Taiwanese businesses that focus on precise components may not be so flexible.
No one in the world can make that one component like they do. And you can't get them to just pick up and move to the United States. I mean, you can try, but it's very difficult for a small and medium-sized enterprise to do that.
Taiwan's finance ministry says that the country exported $111 billion worth of goods to the U.S. in 2024. Around half of that was semiconductors, meaning Taiwan provides billions more in other vital components to the U.S. Taiwanese and U.S. manufacturing go hand in hand, though not in the most obvious of ways. While Trump may impose tariffs on Taiwan's chip industry in a bid to bring jobs to America, many current American jobs benefit from Taiwan's specialized manufacturing, meaning any trade war could have unexpected consequences. Leon Lien, Laurel Stewart, and Leslie Liao in Washington, D.C. for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan has recorded its highest weekly flu-related medical visits in a decade, with over 180,000 people seeking treatment. 28 deaths and 128 severe cases have also been reported by Taiwan's Centers for Disease Control in the first week of February. Health officials say severe cases are rising. Around 13,000 government-funded flu vaccines remain available for high-risk groups, though more are on the way. The CDC expects flu cases to decline in the coming weeks, but says large gatherings and colder weather could prolong the outbreak. The ruling party and opposition coalition are clashing again over the recall law. In a fresh vote, the opposition managed to keep more stringent rules on recalling politicians. John Ventrias reports.
This simple declaration is the latest fracture in the legislature. The opposition Kuomintang and Taiwan People's Party have upheld rules that would make it harder to launch recall campaigns against politicians, against the wishes of the cabinet. A surge of recent petitions has both ruling and opposition lawmakers in the crosshairs, but it's the main opposition KMT that stands to lose the most, with over 30 seats at risk to the ruling Democratic Progressive Party's 13. These numbers aside, opposition lawmakers say they want to make sure recall campaigns are above board, and they say their new rules, like a requirement people signing petitions attach a photocopy of their national ID card, will stop any fraud.
如果你今天去做一个违法的联署，这个都会将来会构成犯罪。联署书上面去伪签他人的名字，这个会构成刑法217条的伪造属押罪。
The vote to keep these rules in place is a big political win for the opposition. This is the third time in a row the cabinet has tried to block opposition policies and failed. Now, some in the opposition camp say it's time for the head of the cabinet, Premier Zhou Rongtai, to step down in defeat.
周荣泰大概最擅长的事情就是提复议，还是厚着脸皮赖在行政院院长的座位上，这是国家的不幸。
But the ruling DPP isn't backing down. Its caucus leader says the party will take the matter to the Constitutional Court.
标准配备就是暂时处分时间，这标配暂时处分，然后再10年金。
No matter who wins that battle, the resentment beneath Taiwan's deep partisan divide isn't going away. Klein Wang and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Lantern Festival celebrations are underway across Taiwan, with different areas hosting spectacular light shows and performances to signal the official end of the Lunar New Year period. Reese Ayers is in Taoyuan, the city hosting the national celebrations this year. Reese, what's happening there?
Well, Eric, a lot going on down here in Taoyuan, a real party atmosphere. There's music on the stage behind me, and there are several square kilometers of light displays and lantern exhibitions and collaborations with big brands like Pokémon and Attack on Titan, and folks coming from all around to enjoy the Lantern Festival here in Taoyuan, which is the host city for this year's main event. Now, the theme of this year is Light Connect All. You might be able to see behind me, there's a giant infinity symbol there, not yet lit up. We're expecting the President Lai Ching-te to come down in about an hour or so to give a speech to the nation, and he might be the one to turn that thing on. Now, it's the Lantern Festival actually marks the official end of the Lunar New Year and welcomes in the spring, and there's a lot of symbolism attached to this festival, which has thousands of years of history. Typically during this time of year, families and friends gather to eat Taoyuan, which are glutinous rice ball treats in a nice hot sweet soup. But the lanterns themselves actually hold a lot of meaning. Now, the lanterns around me here today are mostly decorative, but there are some more functional lanterns that you might release into the sky, and those represent kind of saying goodbye to the year behind you and welcoming the year ahead. And those lights, as they drift away into the sky, representing wishes and fortune for the coming year. And sometimes those lanterns will have wishes or riddles written on them for children and to enjoy. Now, earlier today here in Taoyuan, I actually spoke with some people to get their opinions on what this festival means to them.
新希望其实就是身体健康了，吃汤圆，然后看灯笼、提灯笼这样子吧。
通常都会吃汤圆。
Now, this exhibition here in Taoyuan will actually be around until February 23rd, so plenty of time for people to come down here and enjoy the lanterns and the performances. As for me, I'm going to stick around here a bit longer despite the bad weather. There are some more performances going on. As I said, the president is coming down soon. And Eric, I've heard you'll like this. There's some Pokémon merchandise up for grabs, so I'll see if I can grab some for you as well.
All right, thank you, Reese. I appreciate that. You stay warm down there. That was Reese Ayers reporting live from Taoyuan. And you stay tuned to TaiwanPlus News, because coming up after the break, in the Antarctic, one tiny creature defies freezing temperatures, and a Taiwan-based scientist is trying to find out its secrets.
2025 is calling. Louder, brighter, and bolder. From the roar of the crowds to the quiet moments of triumph. A year to experience sports at its finest. Grab your tickets, tune in, and cheer like never before. Every play counts. Every minute matters. Game on, Taiwan.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. The ceasefire in Gaza is at risk of collapsing, with Israel threatening to end the deal and resume fighting. This after Hamas said they would delay the release of hostages due to Israeli violations of the agreement. Rosie Greninger reports.
fear and desperation on the streets of Tel Aviv. Israeli protesters urging their government to uphold the Gaza ceasefire deal with militant group Hamas to free all hostages, after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu released this warning.
אם חמאס לא יחזיר את חטופינו עד שבת בצהריים, הפסקת האש תיפסק וצה"ל יחזור ללחימה עצימה עד להכרעה סופית של החמאס.
Families of Israelis taken hostage by Hamas on October 7, 2023, say that move would lead to their loved ones' prolonged detainment and possible death sentence. In the 24 days since the ceasefire took effect, 21 Israeli hostages have been released from Gaza in return for 550 Palestinians detained in Israel. 73 hostages are thought to remain in the enclave, but with tens of thousands killed in Gaza during 15 months of fighting, it's unclear how many of those hostages are still alive.
We can't afford another arm wrestling between the sides. There is a deal. Go for it. Run.
Netanyahu's threat to resume the war comes after Hamas said they would postpone the next scheduled release of Israeli hostages on Saturday. The group blamed the delay on Israeli violations of the ceasefire deal, including shooting dead Palestinians in Gaza and failing to allow in agreed humanitarian aid. Hamas's announcement did not refer to US policy, but followed Donald Trump's pledge to take over Gaza and resettle millions of displaced Palestinians in neighbouring Jordan and Egypt. A plan both countries have vehemently opposed. But as King Abdullah of Jordan visited Trump in the White House, the US leader doubled down.
We're not going to buy anything. We're going to have it, and we're going to keep it, and we're going to make sure that there's going to be peace, and there's not going to be any problem, and nobody's going to question it, and we're going to run it very properly.
King Abdullah offered to take in 2,000 children with cancer and other serious health problems, but urged Trump to push for stability in the Middle East with diplomacy in planned meetings with Egypt.
So I think let's wait until the Egyptians can come and present it to the president and not get ahead of ourselves.
As negotiations around the future of Gaza continue, Hamas says it still may go ahead with the hostage exchange on Saturday if Israel complies with its ceasefire obligations. But emboldened by US support, Netanyahu remains steadfast in daring Hamas to back down or face war once again. James Lin and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
A South Korean teacher has confessed to killing a 7-year-old student in the central city of Daejeon. According to police, the elementary school teacher said that she intended to die with a student, choosing the last child to leave the school. The girl's grandmother found her with the teacher in the building. The suspect also stabbed herself, and she is recovering from her wounds. She had previously taken a leave of absence for mental health reasons, but returned from her leave early. A Taiwan-based scientist is in Antarctica studying how a tiny wingless insect is able to survive freezing temperatures. At only about half a centimeter long, it's the largest fully terrestrial species native to the continent. For more on his work on this mighty midge and the significance of Antarctic research, Wesley Lewis spoke with National Taiwan University Associate Professor of Entomology, Matan Shalomi.
Could you tell me more about the insect species you're studying in Antarctica? What are you trying to find out about it?
Even though Antarctica is so huge, there's only really one insect that's native to the continent itself and not also found on some of the other islands. And it's a tiny little fly with no wings, so it can't even fly, called Belgica antarctica. They're only about maybe 1 millimeter thick and half a centimeter long when they're at maximum size. And that's the larva. The adults are even tinier. Nonetheless, they are technically the largest terrestrial animal in Antarctica because they can't swim, unlike the penguin. So one thing I'm here to do is to try to figure out a little bit more about how it's able to survive the cold. My hypothesis is that it might have some relationship with ice-nucleating bacteria. Now, those are bacteria which will affect the freezing point of water. We actually use one of these bacteria to make artificial snow. You mix the bacteria with water and the water will freeze at a relatively warm temperature. So I've been down here looking for these little larvae, dissecting them, plating the gut microbes, growing the microbes, and seeing can any of them nucleate ice.
What is the broader significance of this type of research in Antarctica, and what do you plan to bring back from this trip?
These ice-nucleating microbes could be used to control insects in colder temperatures. If you expose insects to these bacteria, they will freeze at a higher temperature. So if you have something that lives in the relatively cold climate and you want it to die, you make it freeze a little bit sooner. Or you could use this on food or rice or whatever that you're storing at a cold temperature. Add ice-including bacteria and things will freeze sooner. I am planning to bring back some of the microbe samples and hopefully describe them, learn more about them, name them if there are new species. Who knows? We don't know what we might find. I'll bring back DNA samples just so we can get a full picture of the microbiome.
What about Antarctica makes it so important for scientific research?
There's a lot about Antarctica that's really important. A lot of our research on climate change comes here, and Antarctica is experiencing climate change a lot more strongly than other parts of the world. So I think the global climate average has risen by like 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is already bad. Here in the peninsula, it's gone up by about 4 degrees Celsius in the same amount of time. So the global average actually means it's a lot higher here in the poles. And it's had a really serious effect on life here. Consider the base that I'm in. Humans have been on this base for decades, and they can see major changes. Penguins are one example. The island where I'm on now used to have very few penguins. Then it had a bunch of Adelie penguins, which like relatively cold climates. And right now there's about 6,000 Gentoo penguins on this little island. They're really cute, but they shouldn't be here. This is supposed to be too cold for the Gentoo penguin. They're not supposed to get this far south, and yet they are everywhere. So Antarctica is a really good example of climate change in action.
That was National Taiwan University Associate Professor of Entomology, Matan Shalomi, discussing scientific research in Antarctica. And thank you for joining us tonight for TaiwanPlus News. Finally, we're heading to Sri Lanka for a 2-day Buddhist festival featuring traditional dance and musical performances. I'm Eric Yao. Take care, and we'll see you next time.